G'day guys, it's me again. Week 5 of our lockdown in isolation. And this week we're looking at solutions. We'll look at solutions over the next 2 weeks and then start looking at how we might separate solutions and give you some sort of activities and project work to do rather than all these lessons on style. But this next fortnight we need to finish off our theory. So we're looking at a whole lot of new words and hopefully we'll start to make sense of them. They're words you use a lot in common language, which is where some of the confusion comes from. Because in science, of course, they have quite precise meanings, and in our common conversations often have looser meanings. So a solution is a solvent plus a solute. So if I have a cup of coffee, I've got a solution. Hot water has dissolved the coffee grains. I might put some milk in, and some sugar. Not that I take sugar, but there's a number of things then dissolve, so a number of solutes dissolved in a solvent, and the water is the solvent. So a solvent is something that will dissolve a solute. Excuse me. And the solute is a thing that's dissolved. So cup of coffee, the water is a solvent. Coffee, sugar, milk are all solutes. Generally, the particles are invisible. Now that doesn't quite count in the case of milk in the coffee, because the milk becomes a bit of an emulsion. We'll talk about that a bit later. And so it's generally the particles won't reflect light and they'll let it pass straight through. So we call that being transparent. That doesn't mean it's coloured. So you can see these solutions here. They're coloured, but they allow light through. They don't let light reflect. I'll go find the next slide. What's going on down here? Oh, good. We also often see suspensions. So a suspension is a mixture and it has a solvent, so it could be water, but some of the components don't quite dissolve, so they become suspended or held up within the solution. And then if the solution goes still, they tend to form a sediment or a precipitate at the bottom, like they fall out. And so we call that a sediment or precipitation. So like rain, they're precipitated and formed a precipitate. So lots of new words, isn't there? But essentially, you're used to suspensions. You would have seen that quite often when you get some dirty water with muddy particles floating around in it. And we can see those muddy particles because, of course, the light reflects off them and lets us see them. So they're not quite transparent. Often they're what we call opaque. So they're blocking light through them. Then you get lovely things like emulsion, and we were making some emulsions last week in a little practical activity. You're mixing oil and water, which makes an emulsion, but also we start adding detergent and what's the other thing we added to it? Oh, that's who I've forgotten. Mustard. And they act to create that emulsion. Clearly you can't see through that, so it's not transparent. It's not even opaque. There's so much stuff suspended within that emulsion. And they can, as you saw last week, take their time and fall to the bottom. So we get these bits in the bottom, and some will fall to the top or rise to the top. So we get breaking out, and it gets clear spots and cloudier spots. So it's quite different to a suspension in that case. We also think these things called colloids, and the colloid you're probably most used to using is your toothpaste. So it's a mixture, and there are things suspended within the mixture, but they don't tend to separate out, so you don't tend to get that blob at the bottom. Your toothpaste stays the same all the way through. Skin cream, all those skin creams and sunscreens we use are colloids. So they're a special sort of emulsion. And the particles in this case are big enough for us to see, and they reflect light quite clearly. And then we can talk about concentration of our solutions. So as you can see this photograph here, the colour gets quite dark as we move across. So as we start to put more solute in, then the colour becomes darker and darker and darker. So that's diluted, very little solute, and that's quite concentrated, lots of solute. So one way you can increase concentration is putting more solute in, or you can take the solvent out, and it has the same effect. And the opposite is diluting. So we can either put more solvent in and dilute the thing, add more water, or we can put less solute in and therefore cause a dilution. So concentration and dilution are sort of opposites in this pole. So I hope you can see that in that image. And the final thought is this idea of saturation. So if I put more and more and more stuff in, I'll finally get to a point where more and more solute in, I'll get to a point where the solvent can't dissolve any more of the solute. And so we end up with clear bits sitting around the place. There's the water, unsaturated. We keep adding this, probably salt of some sort, into this solution, and we get to a point where it can't dissolve it anymore. You can go beyond that and cause it to be supersaturated, so there's salt particles laying all around here. If we get a chance, we like to do it in class if I could, we'll try and do this because we can make crystals from that. As that evaporates, as the solvent evaporates, crystals of the material in here will form. And depending on the crystal you've used in the first place, the salt you've used in the first place, you can get different colours. It'd be nice to try and do that. You actually buy those kits, I think, in shops for that purpose too. So we'll see what we can do with that one. Anyway, that's our next 2 weeks' work. Lots and lots of new words. Science is full of words. And as I try to point out, we do use lots of these words all the time in our language. In science, they have quite precise meanings, so you've got to be careful to use them precisely. Okay, I'll see you in class. Take care.